Would you say that this is the wonder supplement of all time?
I would.
Turmeric should be on your food every day.
Cumin, also known as curcumin, is better known as the Indian spice that is contained in curries, but it has received a lot of airtime over the last couple of years and quickly risen to become one of the most valuable new nutritional supplements on the market. And this is due to all the research which continues to churn out lots of data showing that cumin has tremendous health promoting abilities.
And I want to read something from a publication that when I first read it totally blew my mind, and then I want to comment on it a little bit. At this writing, Medline contains 193 articles on turmeric and curcuminoids. Of interest are 16 articles on these compounds as antioxidants, 34 reports on their role against cancer, 23 on their mechanism in reducing inflammation, 5 scientific articles on their potential to reduce heart disease, and 3 studies on slowing the progression of HIV infection to clinical AIDS. Now, I don't know of anything else on the market that is covering that much ground. That's just amazing to me, that curcumin could affect so many different properties in the body. I mean, that's something that should be like on the cover of Time and on your evening news. There should be like a public announcement on television telling you about the benefits of curcumin.
Turmeric, a spice that can be found in many curries, is showing promise in the prevention of diabetes. Researchers have found that mice that were fed turmeric were less susceptible to developing type 2 diabetes and also showed reduced inflammation in fat tissue and liver compared to untreated mice. Turmeric is also being studied as a potential treatment for pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer, and Alzheimer's.
Every lady out there would be interested to know about breast cancer. Take 1 million women in America. 660 out of a million will get breast cancer, and 160 will not survive. But in India, only 79 out of a million get it, and there's 41 deaths compared to 160. And then when you look at prostate cancer, the statistics for men are about as dramatic. There are 30 pathways to cancer, inflammatory pathways. He says turmeric is able to stop and inhibit all 30 pathways.
All of them.
I said, how does it do it? He said, well, primarily, turmeric shuts off cancer switches. It shuts down nuclear factor kappa B and STAT3. Those are the 2 main sources of inflammation that lead to cancer.
We live in a culture of inflammation. You know, we have arthritis and bursitis and colitis and tendinitis. Itis means inflammation, so these are all inflammatory conditions. So we could probably talk a little bit about the root cause of some of those inflammatory problems, and it probably comes down to diet and lifestyle, lack of proper foods, and especially eating inflammatory foods, and also lack of exercise. But as far as something that could really be a nice supplement to talking about the proper diet and exercise for an anti-inflammatory protocol, it would definitely be curcumin.
In arthritis, it's great. You see, it's also a COX-2 inhibitor. And for arthritis, it's fantastic. In doing my research, I find out that the pharmaceutical companies, there's your big pharma, has been trying to get the FDA to change the classification for decades on turmeric so they could call it a drug, and then they could manufacture it and sell it to us as a drug. And lo and behold, the FDA, give one to the FDA, they turned them down. They said it's a spice, it's been a spice for 4,000 or whatever years, and it's got a history, and we're not going to change the classification. If they could have gotten it, I'm sure by now they would be touting it as the biggest potential cure for cancer. in all the different cancers, brain cancers, everything. It's very inexpensive. I just had a package delivered by UPS about an hour and a half ago with a special kind of turmeric, because I found out that 66% of turmeric is lost in the feces and in the urine.
Does curcumin come in it?
Yeah.
Or do you have to get it with it?
No. It comes with it, and it has the bioperine 5%, which means you got 400% more absorbability than you would have had before. Yeah, this is pretty incredible. I mean, it's more than that.
Would you say that this is the wonder supplement of all time?
I would. Because the source of information where I'm gathering all this and putting into the news report is unrefutable.
Shane, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm glad I get the opportunity to ask you specific questions about the book. And you worked for a big pharmaceutical company. You're a chemist by trade, and I guess you, like you said, or it said in the book, even as a little kid, you loved chemistry and all those things that most kids weren't interested in, the nerdy stuff back then. But supplements have become such an important commodity. They're on the shelves at grocery stores and drugstores and everywhere, and I really didn't realize there was so much to know about it, and realize how little I did know. But I think the one chapter that really hit home, I guess because we hear so much about cancer, and it's just sort of the worst thing we seem to have to deal with, but how natural products can help us when we've been diagnosed with cancer.
I call it nutrient logic. And you can use nutrient logic to fight cancer, and rather than jump right into chemotherapy, which has its place, but rather than jump right into it as the first line of defense, I like to use nutritional chemotherapy.
But don't you agree that when someone gets the diagnosis, then they start reacting with emotion, not with logic? I mean, I can't imagine hearing that and then saying, I believe I'll go buy a book and read about it.
You said it. Emotion plays a huge role in the overuse of chemotherapy. Fortunately, cancer is a slowly evolving disease internally, which is why I advocate people using nutritional chemotherapy as the first line of defense.
To prevent it, you mean?
To prevent it, but also to fight it in early stages. And then monitor it. And if it's not working, then you can go into the traditional chemotherapy model, because let's face it, it is scary, it is deadly, and it is an epidemic today. All types of cancer.
And we mostly just, once we hear it, we've gone to an oncologist, obviously, but we just operate on blind faith. If they tell us to do chemotherapy or if they tell us to do radiation, we just, most of the time, follow what they say.
We do, and unfortunately, when we look back at the history books, jumping into chemotherapy or radiation isn't proving to be helpful. It's actually causing cancer in many cases. And
Really?
Unfortunately, we're not winning the war on cancer as a result. And this has been highlighted all over the place, New York Times, the Journal of the American Medical Association. The science is there. So we really have to step back, get a grip on our emotions, and think about what we can do naturally in place of chemotherapy as the first line of defense.
Because starting it the next day after our diagnosis is not going to make that much difference. That's when we certainly need to be doing the research. But one thing you talk about is don't fight cancer. We need to cooperate with our body. And I thought that was an interesting approach.
The body is its own pharmacy. I like to call it the internal pharmacy that very few people are utilizing to fight cancer, and also just to be vibrantly healthy. But in order for our internal pharmacy to fight cancer, we have to give it the basic building blocks that it needs, the nutritional blocks that it needs to ward off cancer.
But tamoxifen is the cancer cure, it seems like right
For
now.
women.
That's the one that, that I'm most familiar with and have heard the most about. What's
for
your
women.
opinion of it?
Unfortunately, tamoxifen, and I was actually working on tamoxifen as a medicinal chemist.
Oh.
And in the early days, it was shown to actually shunt cancer. But as time went on, it was actually mimicking something, a hormone in our body known as estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
And by mimicking estrogen, it was like cancer fertilizer.
Oh.
It was actually causing cancer. And that's when, as medicinal chemists, we were trying to rearrange that molecule just a little bit to offset that nasty side effect.
Uh-huh. So, in other words, you were trying to design safer alternatives?
Chemical cousins of tamoxifen that didn't cause cancer, like tamoxifen did. Unfortunately, tamoxifen is used on the market today as an anti-cancer drug, but it's wildly unhealthy, and I don't suggest that people take tamoxifen.
Not as the first line of defense,
Not
anyway.
as the first line of defense.
What about radiation?
Radiation, not as the first line of defense. If that's your last chance, then it can go after and eradicate cancer, but it also eradicates healthy cells and tears down the body completely, and you have to hope that you're going to rebound. And you can use that hope as the last line of defense, but not as the first line of defense.
Well, you talk about that the biggest chemo risk is because it's a toxic mix, and you talked about 3 classes of drugs that are, well, I was not familiar with any of the 3.
Yeah, most people, when they take chemotherapy, traditional chemotherapy, they're not even aware of the type of chemotherapy that they're taking. Chemotherapy is just chemotherapy. Unfortunately, in the book, I talk about all the different types of chemotherapy, and I show distinctively how they attack all cells, not just cancer cells. In other words, they're not selective to cancer cells. So if you immediately douse somebody with chemotherapy, you're going to see an eradication of cancer, but you're also going to see an eradication of healthy cells. That's where the side effects come in.
I see. And I think we've heard about that, but the turmeric?
Turmeric, yeah, is a phenomenal spice.
That's what I was going to say. We cook with that, but I didn't realize that it was a supplement in terms of fighting cancer.
MD Anderson Center has been studying turmeric for decades. And what it does is it attacks specifically cancer cells, and it leaves healthy cells alone. To be brief, turmeric has active ingredients known as curcuminoids, and they attack cancer's biological superpower, which is known as a transcription factor. And by attacking this transcription factor, which is basically a fertilizer that allows cancer to grow, it prevents cancer from growing, and it works fantastically. And you can get turmeric at Walmart
just
for
I've seen it.
$7.
Wow. So is curcumin and turmeric the same thing?
The same. Turmeric carries the active ingredients known as curcumin or curcuminoids. And we tested a lot of different supplements on the market to find out which turmeric had the most curcuminoids, because you want to make sure you're getting the right supplement.
Sure. And they're not all created equal,
They're
as
not
I've
all
read in
created
your
equal.
book and heard
Some
you
are
say.
very dangerous, exactly.
And of course, we all wish we could just take one pill and it would make us healthy and get rid of everything that we're fighting. But you still advocate proper exercise, proper
yeah, we
diet.
can't just choke down a bunch of pills and then throw our hands back and say I'm doing everything I can. You have to take charge of your health. You have to basically go crazy. This is your life, right? And you want to live longer, better. So one lifestyle factor that you have to incorporate into your life is getting off sugar, because sugar feeds cancer. When cancer grows, I told you about the transcription factors that help it grow. It's like steroids for cancer. Curcuminoids or turmeric can attack those transcription factors, but at the same time, when you take in sugar, it feeds glucose. Glucose is the energy for cancer. Healthy cells don't need glucose. So you've got to get off sugar. Something you can do to still get your sweet fix without sabotaging your health is take stevia. Some stevia tastes bad. Some stevia products taste good. This is one that I like, and I found this at Walmart, and it tastes fantastic. And I'll have you go ahead and taste test it just to prove it.
Well, and besides getting off sugar, which I think would be the hardest thing for me, you talk about proper exercise, limit sugar and alcohol, and also sunshine.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
You need to get
sometimes
sunshine,
we say,
but we're told to stay out of the sun. And at the same time, they want us to take vitamin D pills, or so-called sunshine pills. How does that taste?
It's not bitter at all.
Not bitter at all?
Just
Tastes
like
good?
sugar.
Could you use it like sugar?
Oh, yeah. Especially when you were telling me what sugar does for cancer cells and things. This would be easy to get off.
Good. That's a great product, very inexpensive.
And it's on the grocery shelf.
Yeah, you can find it at Walmart.
Easy to find. What are doctors' reactions to this nutritional? Like if I went in and said, before I want to start my chemotherapy, I'd like to talk to you about nutritional chemotherapy.
I think a lot of doctors are receptive to it because if they're studying traditional chemotherapy, then they know that it's not working. And any patient that's willing to take charge of their health and work with their doctor is going to be an asset to that doctor. So a lot of them, I think, are willing to work with the patients in terms of nutritional chemotherapy and making lifestyle changes. And if nothing else, it'll help traditional chemotherapy work better.
Well, yeah, it certainly won't do any damage to that.
Exactly.
So, again, that could be the last line of defense.
Exactly.
Well, the book's really interesting, and I appreciate you writing it in such an easy-to-read, sometimes humorous manner.
All right.
And I learned a lot from it. Thank you very much, Shane.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. My name is Dr. Stephen Joyal, Vice President of Scientific Affairs at Life Extension. Curcumin is the active constituent of the spice turmeric. An overwhelming number of experimental studies support the health benefits of curcumin. Life Extension now offers a new, highly bioavailable form of curcumin called BCM95. Experimental studies suggest that curcumin has beneficial effects upon inflammatory pathways in the body. Clinical as well as experimental models support the benefits of curcumin on inflammatory mediators such as nuclear factor kappa B, as well as enzymes involved in inflammatory pathways like COX-2 and lipoxygenase. A recent human clinical study, soon to be published in 2008, shows that the new form of curcumin offered by Life Extension is significantly more bioavailable than a 95% standardized curcumin extract, as well as curcumin phytosone enhanced with bioperin for bioavailability. Studies also show that BCM95 remains in the blood at higher levels for much longer and more consistently than the other forms of curcumin tested in this human clinical study. Life Extension is proud to offer our members and customers this new, highly bioavailable form of curcumin, BCM95, for sustained health benefits.
I'm here to talk to you today about curcumin and curcuminoids. These are the flavonoid portions of the herb or spice turmeric. Turmeric has been used worldwide for many, many, many years, thousands of years, as a dye and as a food substance. However, in the past 25 years or so, the medical profession, scientific community has discovered that it is an effective, extremely effective anti-inflammatory compound and anti-cancer compound. And one of the primary ways it works as an anti-cancer compound is because of or due to its anti-inflammatory capabilities. Now, it's a safe compound. It's been used as a food for thousands of years. And I'm sure some of you have turmeric in your cabinets at home for cooking. Now, when should this compound be used? It can be used in any chronic inflammatory disorder, and any autoimmune arthritic disorder, any inflammatory intestinal disorder like Crohn's disease and colitis. There have been clinical studies showing its effectiveness in arthritis of various kinds, in Crohn's disease, in ulcerative colitis, and in many other autoimmune inflammatory conditions. Now, it can also be used as an anti-cancer compound. So in folks who have a high risk for the development of cancers because of family histories, curcuminoids can be used on a daily basis to reduce the risks of various cancers, specifically breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, and others. In those patients who have had a history of cancer and are now in their 5-year recuperative phase, maybe post-mastectomy, maybe post-prostatectomy, maybe post-surgery or chemotherapy, curcuminoids can be used very effectively to reduce your risks of recurrence rates of those cancers. Please join me and take your curcumin. It's the spice of life.
Hello and welcome to Health Talk. I'm Dr. Manny. Natural medicine is on the rise in this country, and we are fortunate enough to have our own alternative cure guru right here at Fox joining me to share the benefits of, listen to this, curcumin. Is our own medicine hunter, Chris Killam. Curcumin. I just love saying that word, curcumin.
Yeah.
But listen.
It's the yellow stuff in turmeric root.
The yellow stuff in turmeric. And you made me eat that in another show. But we know that this is good, especially for people who suffer from Alzheimer's, or at least a prevention to Alzheimer's.
In those countries where turmeric is consumed in large quantities daily, there's a very, very low incidence of Alzheimer's disease. We know that curcumin is a powerful anti-inflammatory, so it's every bit as effective as ibuprofen. The most recent finding, though, is that curcumin, this ingredient that just keeps growing in its body of science, also helps to reduce the risk of colorectal cancer, which I think is the second cancer killer in the United States.
Yes,
so you've got two choices. You can either eat a good amount of turmeric root, powdered in food every single day.
In my day, right? In my food,
yeah,
use that
in
as
your
a main
veggies, in your fish,
right.
in your meats, sauces, soups, etc.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can take turmeric supplements, curcumin supplements like this one here. Either way, we know that this spice is totally benign, that it doesn't have any toxicity, it doesn't interfere with medications, but it may relieve pain, reduce the risk of certain cancers, and possibly inhibit the development of Alzheimer's disease. So once again, we find that a very simple spice has profound medical benefits that can make a huge difference in your health and longevity.
What about depression? Anything with that?
Yes, there is something with depression. Curcumin increases the brain's natural production of protective agents. When you have all the right brain chemistry going, you're happier.
Mm-hmm.
So if your brain chemistry is balanced, which is, of course, what psychopharmacology is all about, then you have a better mood. So I would say that in addition to cancer prevention, eat a bunch of turmeric, you'll probably be in a better mood.
There you have it. He does it again. He knows about all these spices. You're going to live to be 100. I can tell you that much. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Manny.
Check out the Medicine Hunters blog every Wednesday at foxnewshealth.com. And if you have a health question, email me here at Fox at drmanny@foxnews.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Manny. Check out that turmeric.
This is Dr. Mercola, and today I'd like to talk to you about antioxidants. I'm sure everyone has heard about them, but most people don't understand what they do, so I'd like to help you understand that. And antioxidants are important because they prevent against damage from free radicals. Now, what's a free radical? Well, a free radical is an atom or a molecule that essentially has an unpaired electron. And it's very unstable and highly reactive. It can cause lots of damage in your tissues. Now, in biological systems like humans, the most common free radical is typically some type of oxygen free radical. And actually, the most potent one is a hydroxyl free radical. So anyway, when you have this unpaired electron, it's very unstable, and it can attack, essentially, your cell membranes, your genetic material, your DNA, your proteins. So it can damage them, and once it's damaged, of course, it's not going to work very well, and maybe irreversibly damaged. So we've got to be careful about making sure that we build up our internal defense mechanisms so that we have a number of antioxidants available. And probably the simple, single best way to do that is to make sure that you and your family are eating plenty of high-quality plants and vegetables. And by high quality, I mean preferably organic and biodynamically and locally grown, so that there's a minimum amount of time transfer from the time it's picked from the soil to it reaches your table. And this is going to give you the highest quality. If you have a wide variety of them, especially you're selecting foods that are based on your nutritional type, then that's really going to maximize and be the best way to do that. Now, if you're looking for some additional antioxidants, there are a number of different strategies that you can use. You can use regular vitamins, such as vitamin E and vitamin C. And of course, they're loaded with benefits, and the literature is just full of the descriptions of telling how useful they are. As I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite ones is ubiquinol, or a reduced form of vitamin CoQ10, because that tends to recycle the vitamin C and E. But another way that you can incorporate and adopt these very powerful antioxidants into your system is by taking plants that are specifically loaded with them. And one of the most potent plant, an herb, with antioxidants properties that has just been profoundly well researched is turmeric. And turmeric has the active ingredient is these curcuminoids, and that's what actually gives it this yellow appearance. And it is incredibly potent. It's actually about 8 times more potent than vitamin E, and it's much stronger than vitamin C also. So it can help protect your body from this free radical damage, these hydroxyl free radicals that can really devastate many of your biological tissues. So if you're going to look at some type of antioxidant insurance, and personally, I think that the evidence is so compelling that I take turmeric every day myself, because it's just a really interesting and novel way to add a form of insurance to make sure that your cell membranes and everything and DNA are all stabilized. So if you decide to do something like that, that you want to be very careful and pay a lot of attention to the details and really examine the quality of the raw materials of the product you're going to take. Because if it's like something like turmeric, you're going to I mean, certainly if you use it in cooking and the spice, you'll get some benefits, but typically when you cook it, you're going to damage, like many vegetables and fruits, you'll damage those antioxidants. So ideally you don't want to cook it. But not to say you shouldn't use turmeric in your cooking because of or your food, because that's going to give you some benefit. But ideally, you'd like to have it raw or uncooked. So if you take it as an herbal preparation, it'll allow you to do that. But one of the key things is really paying attention to the quality. And if you don't, you're really not going to get all the benefits that have been ascribed to turmeric and curcumin. So and that's why you can, especially when it comes to herbs, because herbs are not nearly as regulated as drugs. And when you purchase a drug, one of the benefits of it is that it's highly regulated and certified, and if the drug label says it has so many milligrams of a certain drug, then it's going to be there, and it doesn't really matter who's manufacturing it. The quality should be there because there are very rigid guidelines they have to follow. And unfortunately, this is not the case for herbal products, especially products like turmeric, so that there's a wide discrepancy in the quality, and especially if the company had not paid attention to growing it organically. If it's not, then you're going to have contaminants or pesticide contaminants in the preparation. So you want to make sure that you're looking for an organic preparation. Ayurvedic medicine is something I became interested in recently, and actually went and took a trip to India last year. And if you haven't seen my video on that, there's a link to that later on this page. But I went there for a number of reasons. One was to speak to as a speaker at a conference where there were several thousand farmers there, and to interact and actually connect with a company called Organic India, who has a phenomenal mission, really, of providing these high-quality raw materials to Ayurvedic practitioners, because there was progressively a decrease in the availability of these herbs, largely as an influx of these chemical industries that had permeated the Indian culture and really shifted a large part of the farming community to these highly toxic chemical operations. And many people are not aware that one of the most common causes of death of the typical small Indian farmer was suicide, because their lifestyle had just dramatically decreased. They were impoverished. They had a miserable existence, and they would actually swallow these pesticides as a way of killing themselves. And this was pervasive for the last 10, 20 years or so. It was one of the motivations that also motivated Organic India to come in there, not only to have a source of these high-quality raw materials, of these age-old, highly effective Indian herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, but to also see if they could have an impact, a positive impact on the local Indian community. And that is actually what they did. When they started over 10 years ago, there was essentially no farmers farming organically on a large-scale basis. And they started with about 9 or 10 farmers, and now have grown to 150,000 farmers who are using these methods, using organic, biodynamically grown methods to produce the highest quality herbs. Now, not only does this provide a high-quality herbal product, but perhaps, and some people would believe even more importantly, they've dramatically improved the lifestyle the life conditions of these farmers, so that they're not killing themselves anymore. They actually can make a decent living. They have a respect, and they've actually the organic has been able to provide them with hospitals and schools, and it's just really a very powerful to have witnessed that when I went over there, and it's amazing. But getting back to your ability to, so Organic India has done that with these herbs, and I'm absolutely confident of that, because there's so many variables that are connected with that you have to pay attention to when you're producing these herbs, such as obviously growing it the right way, but not only that, perhaps even more important is the time that you harvest it and how you harvest it, the temperatures you use for processing, the type of dehydration that you're using, and all of these can go into the method, or not the method, but they go into there are variables and factors to consider that produces the highest quality potency of, in other words, an herb that will work. So herbs like ashwagandha or turmeric or tulsi tea, these are all, the quality of them is absolutely dependent not only on the soil, but the way that these are harvested. And as I said, I went over there, I personally examined and witnessed the way that this operation has worked with Organic India, and I was very, very impressed. So if you're increasing stamina and energy in addition to following a healthy lifestyle, and it is not working for you, and you'd like to try something else, because of course following a healthy lifestyle with a diet, exercise, proper sleep, exposure to sunshine, these are all crucial, and they will help stimulate your body to go towards health and away from disease. But if that is not achieving those results for you now, or you need a little boost, then certainly something like these adaptogenic herbs are something you might want to consider. But I would just want to caution you to be very careful, very, very cautious to select a company that is paying attention to these details, because the devil's in the details, and if you aren't, you're going to be selecting an herbal preparation that maybe not have the potency that you believe it might have, and as a result of that, you won't be able to achieve the benefits that have been ascribed to this preparation previously. So hopefully this information will help you and your family continue to take control of your health.
Broadly, there are two projects that are being carried out in my lab. The first project is supported by the National Cancer Institute, which is a part of National Institutes of Health. In this project, we are trying to eliminate unwanted cells, or more precisely, brain tumor cells, by designing clever ways. The first way is to genetically target and alter the brain tumor cells so that their surface properties are changed in such a way that they are phagocytosed, or in other words, they are gobbled up by scavenger cells which exist in our brain. And the second way that we are designing is by using natural agents, such as the turmeric component, curcumin. Turmeric is a spice which is used all over Southeast Asia, and this component, curcumin, kills cancer cells, but interestingly, it protects normal cells. It's also an antioxidant. The second project is mainly on the emotional problems. The two types of emotional problems that we are dealing with out here are anxiety, depression, and schizophrenia. Most of these emotional problems occur because the brain doesn't develop during early childhood. The main model that we use is the mouse model. Using the mouse brain, we make slices, culture them, and then we record electrical activity, as well as we carry out biochemical and molecular biology analysis to understand what is happening inside these regions of the brain.
The next topic that we're going to talk about is inflammation. And the first herb that we're going to use is turmeric. Curcumin is the active anti-inflammatory agent found in the spice turmeric. Turmeric is also effective and is a very powerful anti-inflammatory drug in reducing pain, swelling, stiffness, and is also used in rheumatoid arthritis. It has also been very, very effective in the treatment of post-surgical operations and as well as inflammation. Other studies indicate that turmeric can also lower histamine levels and is a very potent antioxidant. These factors may also contribute to its anti-inflammatory capabilities. The daily dosage for turmeric is actually 400 to 600 milligrams daily if it's taken in a pill form or in a form of capsules. Also, turmeric is widely used in every country as well as in every dish, in every cuisine. You can add turmeric close to 1 tablespoon to about 2 tablespoons in your favorite dishes.
This is Insider Medicine in 60 from Washington. Most general anesthetics used during surgery can increase the likelihood of discomfort when the patient wakes up. Researchers discovered that most general anesthetics stimulate sensory nerves throughout the body, which causes irritation and contributes to the pain felt by patients upon awakening, as well as to lingering oversensitization of pain pathways in the nervous system. From New York, turmeric, a spice that can be found in many curries, is showing promise in the prevention of diabetes. Researchers have found that mice that were fed turmeric were less susceptible to developing type 2 diabetes and also showed reduced inflammation in fat tissue and liver compared to untreated mice. Turmeric is also being studied as a potential treatment for pancreatic cancer, colorectal cancer, and Alzheimer's. And finally, from Calgary, the rate of cesarean section in Canada has reached a record high, with 1 in 4 babies being delivered in this way. Key factors driving this increase include the growing proportion of overweight mothers and older first-time mothers, as well as the emerging trend of elective C-sections. While C-sections are relatively safe, they do carry a higher risk of complications than normal childbirth and should be sought in cases of medical necessity. For Insider Medicine in 60, I'm Dr. Susan Sharma.
Hi, I'm Chris Killam, coming to you from the Chow Kit Market in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is turmeric root. You probably know this as the yellow spice in curry powder, but you might not know that turmeric root is also a powerful medicine. For one thing, it's anti-inflammatory, so it helps to relieve aches and pains in the body. For another, it helps to lower LDL bad cholesterol. Turmeric root also has anti-cancer properties, and doctors and scientists all over the world are investigating these properties. And there's good news for reducing the risk of Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases. It appears that turmeric root reduces the occurrence of amyloid plaque, deposits in the brainstem that build up in cases of Alzheimer's and other diseases. Turmeric root is good tasting, it makes a great addition to food, and it'll protect your health.
Hi there, my name's Alex here at VitaTalks. A brief nutritional update for you. If you're overweight or obese, you may produce too much of a hormone called leptin. Now, leptin has been found by researchers to actually stimulate certain liver cells. This can result in a thing called a fatty liver, and then you can get fibrosis, which is further damage, and then end stage you get a thing called cirrhosis. Now, cirrhosis is very bad. That means sort of real liver death, as it were, because it can increase your chances as well of liver cancer. So, not a good situation. Fortunately, though, there is a substance that can help you, according to recent research, and that is turmeric. Now, turmeric contains a powerful antioxidant called curcumin. Now, that's the stuff that actually turns curries a yellow colour, because they use it in Indian cooking. Now, curcumin, fortunately, can help prevent this whole process, whereby leptin stimulates liver cells. It seems to sort of interfere with leptin stimulation of these liver cells. So, you really should add in turmeric, that yellow powder. You add it into your cooking, because if you're overweight or obese, it may well help prevent potentially damage to the liver. I have to tell you as well that it's worth, doesn't matter if you're overweight or obese even, it's worth adding turmeric into your diet, because it does contain powerful antioxidants, these curcumin substances, and these are fantastic as general antioxidants. Anyway, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is Sayer G, founder of GreenMedInfo.com, and today we'll be talking about turmeric and one of its primary constituents, curcumin, because it is the most heavily researched substance on our database. Just to get you a sense for how much research does exist, we're going to jump over here to PubMed.gov, which I encourage you all to search out and to use, because it is the source for all of the data on our database. This is a public domain bibliographic reference source where you can look up to 20 million different citations using keywords, very much like Google. So it's sort of like the Google of medicine and life science related information. So let's type in turmeric and see how many results we get. Okay, as you can see, there's 1,800 peer-reviewed published studies on turmeric in the literature. You can click and get the free abstracts, and oftentimes there's a link to the full abstract, which can cost money to purchase. But thankfully, these scientists do a pretty good job of submitting a summary that will include information that gets to the heart of the matter. This particular study, actually, look here, in conclusion, our results suggest that turmeric extract can provide protection against the negative effects of aflatoxin on the performance of broiler chickens. Okay, let's go back. Now, turmeric is the whole plant, and oftentimes in the medical field, they're looking for magic bullet constituents. So curcumin has become sort of the favored constituent in this complex plant, which includes over 1,000 naturally occurring phytocompounds. So curcumin is the primary polyphenol antioxidant in turmeric, and if we type in curcumin and we search, we find 3,934 studies. Now, what we've done over the course of a month is we've looked at every single one of these studies, and we have indexed the ones that were compelling, that showed that turmeric had some medicinal value, if not proven, then potential medicinal value for disease. And this is the page, turmeric. We're going to show you how to navigate here first. So on the front page, you want to go to the substance index. You click that. It's an A to Z index. You go to T for turmeric, and you scroll down to U, and there it is. It's one of 1,300 substances we've indexed. And as you can see, it's been shared 1,991 times, so other people apparently find this compelling. Now, we have also enabled this page to be viewed without membership, which is a feature we are trying to promote, because the resource as it exists today costs us $345 a month to just pay basic operating costs. So if you are interested in a membership, feel free. You can click on the left, become a member. It's only $295 a month. So we're hoping this will be a real grassroots movement where people can participate for a nominal fee and help make this free resource possible. But what we have done is pages that we feel are most important to get out to the public. We've enabled it so that you have all the features a full member would have. Now, as you can see, on top it gives you the article count. You have diseases count, so 569 different ailments are indexed across these 1,500 studies, and below you'll see them in a moment. Now, before we go there, I want you to see this one feature, which is limit articles by following study types. So let's say if you're only interested in the human studies, you can click this, and you'll find just over 60 of the studies on the database are on human subjects. And we've talked in the past about why this is, and it's primarily because in order to find the capitalization required to embark on human clinical trials, it really requires an investor who is looking to get a return on his or her investment, or if it's a corporation, on the corporation's investment. And that is a fatal flaw when it comes to FDA drug approval, because patents are not available for natural things that you can grow in your backyard for free, as we all know, nor do natural things provide market exclusivity. So what that does is it's sort of like a kiss of death. In order to attain FDA approval as a drug, which is required for something to be used as a medicine within the established medical system, it has to be proprietary. And because nature does have her own proprietary formulas but doesn't grant patents, we are in a very difficult situation, because although if you look at any number of the studies on this page, and you'll see research indicating turmeric, for example, 169 studies showing it has antioxidant activity. And interestingly enough, in the context of a cancer model, you'll find that it actually has a pro-oxidant effect. So there's a certain selective cytotoxicity, they call it, with the herb being able to target tissue that, for instance, is not participating in a healthy way with the whole, and leave intact and protect tissue that is maybe undergoing oxidative damage, which could eventually lead to genetic changes associated with a cancerous phenotype. So the point is that there's a certain intelligence and, if you'd like, adaptogenic quality to this plant. We'll get a little bit into that in a second when we go through the Pharmacological Actions Index. So on the right here you see this column, article count 169 on oxidative stress, 51 on inflammation, 38 on lipid peroxidation, 52 on DNA damage, 61 on breast cancer. And what you can do is you can select just those articles that you're interested in seeing. So for example, let's take the 24 on colorectal cancer. You select those. It's going to focus these articles, and it will take a few moments because the system is designed to cache out or store in a static form the information whenever we make these selections. So it looks like I'm the first one to select just these 24 for focusing. So what that means is it's going to take us a little time, but the next person who does this, it should be rather rapid. As we're waiting a moment here, I'd like for you to see that we're dealing with all types of cancers that seem to succumb to turmeric. 42 on prostate cancer, let's see, 24 on liver cancer, let's see, 16 on skin cancer. And all this information is designed to make a certain argument. What I mean by that is that, you know, we can't practice medicine because legally only a doctor can do so. And okay, now we have seen the filtering. Let me go back here. So you can see as we get down to the end of this list of over 500 diseases, okay, we filtered to the top just the 24 studies on colorectal cancer. Okay, so this is what makes the website unique when you're using the fully enhanced membership view, is that you're able to focus out parts of these 1,500 studies that you find most interesting. Okay, so we'll go back to the top. And so this is the real key to our database, is that, you know, we aren't medical doctors. We don't have degrees in medicine. We're users. We are trying to access, as we showed you, the peer-reviewed medical literature right off Medline. And this is the beautiful thing about our democracy of information, is that PubMed.gov offers for free the entire globe access to over 20 million index studies. So that's a pretty overwhelming amount of data. And what we've done is simply put it on one page and index it so that we get a certain type of argument. So if there's 169 studies indicating that turmeric has an antioxidant activity or helps reduce oxidative stress, that means something. And what we're doing is we're calling it cumulative knowledge. It's the accumulated knowledge on a certain relationship. And we're giving higher points to those studies that are human versus animal versus in vitro and so on. And so the idea is that we're going to communicate evidence quantity here, article count, and quality in this score called cumulative knowledge. And that's what this whole box is here. Now, we're not trying to make the argument that if a certain disease isn't going to come up high on our list, then it shouldn't be pursued as a potential application for turmeric or curcumin. We don't want it to be a list that excludes what's not on the list, because that's one of the dangers. But what we are trying to do is amass the vast information in such a way that it's compelling. And what I mean by that, if we go to the National Institutes of Health and the National Library of Medicine's own interpretation of turmeric, and again, these are the two organizations that make possible PubMed.gov. So they're the ones who sponsor this and make it available to the public, so we thank you for that. But when it comes down to their interpretation, you know, what is turmeric effective for? The only thing they say is it could possibly be effective for stomach upset. Okay? And keep in mind, this is a thousands upon thousands of year old remedy used for things as varied as boils to stomach upset to inflammation. And because we live in a system in a day and age where what science doesn't explicitly validate as being real cannot be considered to be real, we negate a thousand upon thousand year history of people using something because it works for them, and that's real to me. And so here you see a list of insufficient evidence to rate for effectiveness. Okay, and this is skin cancer, rheumatoid jaundice, hepatitis, diarrhea, fibromyalgia. It kind of puts people in a void because it doesn't really give you much of a sense. Okay, well, how much evidence is there? And that's really what GreenMed Info is about. Okay, here you see several references for their above statement, and you get about 22. Okay, so 22 references. What we're doing here is we're giving you 1,500 references. And like I said, it took several months to get to the point where we were able to exhaustively evaluate all of these studies. Okay, and I want to show you one thing that makes me really excited, is that if you look at cancers drug resistant, these studies are very important because although they are strictly in vitro, although maybe there is an animal study or two there, this is never going to become compelling or actionable to the conventional medical system, because if you are able to demonstrate something like a spice being therapeutic for a drug-resistant or multi-drug resistant cancer, that threatens an establishment that is it's beyond criticism. I mean, as of right now, the standard of care set down by the evidence-based model, which specifies that a human double-blind clinical placebo-controlled trial is the gold standard for determining the value of something, these in vitro and animal studies mean nothing. So I just filtered those to the top. Let me show you. Okay. But to me, it's very compelling. If there's 40-something studies indicating that a natural substance can induce, let's say, programmed cell death in a hormone-refractory prostate cancer cell line, or in retinoblastoma cells, which don't tend to respond very well to chemotherapy, or here's one for multi-drug resistant multiple myeloma cells, that's hugely promising to me. You know, if I was in the position of facing conventional treatment, which had very poor prognosis for actually helping, and I knew there was something safe, and when I say safe, I mean this is something incorporated into diets of over 1 billion people on this planet, and it's being used on a daily basis as a spice. Well, it certainly would make sense at least to use it as a quote adjuvant, to use it with conventional medicine, and I can say that because, you know, there are a number of properties to turmeric that are extraordinarily unique, and this is where we get to the pharmacological index. So here you go. You have an herb that has been shown to have over 150 different pharmacological actions. We already talked about antioxidant properties. 230 articles that we've indexed thus far indicate it is an antioxidant. Here's a very interesting finding. 309 studies indicating that it's apoptic, which means that it induces programmed cell death in cancer cells, or cells like, let's say, in rheumatoid arthritis, which are simply, devouring healthy tissue. These activated immune cells that are expressing autoimmunity. So this property is extremely important because if you are trying to induce programmed cell death, it is reminding the cell that it's time for it to give up its individuality for the whole, to naturally, safely, gently disassemble itself, and to make room for new healthy tissue. So 309 studies, highly compelling to me. As you go down the list here, 75 studies on its chemopreventive properties, 48 on its chemosensitizing properties, which means if you administer a chemotherapeutic agent, some would call them chemotoxic agents, it would help those agents work better at killing the cancer cells. Angiogenic, for preventing metastasis or invasiveness of the cancers. Radioprotective, so if you're undergoing radiotherapy, another euphemism in my understanding, using, obviously radioisotopes that are released in nuclear disasters, but using them to treat cancers. Well, at least curcumin offers a radioprotective property. You also find 14 studies on its radiosensitizing properties. So what we're saying here is it not only protects healthy tissue from the, quote, therapeutic gamma radiation being applied to a cancer cell, for instance, but it also sensitizes that cancer cell to the radiation. So you see this diversity of action that within the conventional model of sort of monochemical magic bullets that are self-same, that don't necessarily exhibit diametrically opposed properties, it's fascinating to see an herb express what appear to be opposite actions, but within the same plant. And you go on and on and on. So this is why we're excited about this page, is that we feel by collecting all this data, we're providing the world with an extensive, exhaustive evaluation, and hopefully that will empower people to look back in their cupboards, in their refrigerators, in their backyards for the medicines that have been used since the beginning of time, and that have a margin of safety that is orders of magnitude higher than drugs that are being marketed to us as sometimes the only choice, and which may literally cost $100,000 per treatment. This to me is unconscionable and makes it all the more important that we get grassroots support for making this information public. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to following up with another herb soon.
Science Central.
It may not be just your diet, but how you spice it that keeps diabetes under control. a natural yellow pigment in the curry spice turmeric, already known to have other health benefits, can also improve symptoms of diabetes in mice.
Maybe obese people can become normal in their sugars without necessarily losing the weight. Obviously, losing weight is the optimal way to go, but maybe along the way while they're working towards that goal, we can help them with a little bit of these natural remedies.
Drew Tortoriello and his team at the Naomi Berry Diabetes Center in New York fed high-fat diets to lean mice.
So they basically became overweight, actually obese, and diabetic from a diet very rich in fat.
As he wrote in the journal Endocrinology, they then added a high dose of turmeric's pigment, called curcumin, to the same high-fat diet of half the mice.
We noticed a very significant drop in their blood sugars. So basically, after 2 weeks of consuming curcumin orally, their diabetes was essentially gone.
The spice mice lost only a little weight, but had healthier livers and less inflammation in their fat tissues. Tortoriello now plans to do studies in people to see if curcumin supplements can improve diabetes and other obesity-related health issues. In the meantime, he says it couldn't hurt to spice up your food with turmeric. I'm Sunita Reed.
Researchers at the Arizona Health Sciences Center are discovering that the root of the turmeric plant, used for centuries in cooking and in Ayurvedic medicine, is effective against some inflammatory diseases.
Turmeric is a spice that's used, it's what causes curries to be orange, and it's traditionally used a lot in Indian cooking. But it's also used traditionally in Indian medical systems, and it's used specifically for inflammatory things like colds, sore throats, and arthritis.
Dr. Janet Funk is a clinical endocrinologist at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. With support from the National Institutes of Health, she studied turmeric to see if it is useful in treating arthritis. In her lab, she found that it prevented arthritis by blocking an inflammatory response in the body.
And turmeric attacks something early on. We know that the same pathway is important in a lot of other diseases.
Dr. Funk recently teamed with Dr. Leslie Ritter, coordinator for the Stroke Center at University Medical Center, to see if turmeric might help stroke patients. Their research has shown that turmeric can reduce the inflammation that complicates the effects of stroke and may even be preventative. Are more curries in order, or turmeric supplements?
As we know in laboratory models it works very well, but still there's no clinical trials with people showing that they work and that they're safe. Turmeric that we buy at the grocery store and that we use in cooking is basically comes from the turmeric rhizome, and they dry it and grind it up. And that's turmeric powder that you buy in the spice section of the grocery store. When you go to the store to buy turmeric as a dietary supplement, it comes in a pill form, and it's not just the dried rhizome put in a pill. Rather, instead, they take the dried rhizome, they extract it with various chemicals to get just a small part of it, so that one pill, one dietary supplement pill of turmeric is usually equal to this much of the dried powder. So it's what you buy is very different than what you use in cooking. These are just different capsules that we've opened up, and we've looked at them to see what they're composed of. And just looking at their colors, you can see that they're not all the same. And when you go to the health food store, you can't really tell. There's not enough information given to you to figure out what's in a given capsule, because that's just the way they're regulated.
In their lab, Dr. Funk and Dr. Ritter use turmeric extracts that are isolated and prepared specifically for them, so they know exactly what they are testing, what works, and how. Additional research and clinical trials in the future may prove that turmeric is an effective therapy for many of our ills.
During ischemic stroke, when a blood vessel is blocked,
the tissue downstream of the blockage actually is affected, causing injury and death to just a portion of the brain.
Leslie Ritter, professor at the Arizona Health Sciences Center and coordinator for the Stroke Center at University Medical Center, wants to find better outcomes for stroke patients. She may have an answer in the spice we know as turmeric.
A stroke is the result of reduced or absence of blood to a portion of the brain. The majority of strokes are called ischemic strokes, and that happens when a blood vessel is blocked or plugged. And the treatment of choice is to open the vessel with either a drug, a clot-busting drug, or some mechanical intervention.
When a vessel is opened after a stroke, blood sweeps back into the brain, bringing with it white blood cells or leukocytes that adhere to the vessel walls. This results in acute inflammation or collateral damage to the vessels and brain tissue.
So we look in our laboratory for ways to reduce this inflammation so that when we do give blood back to the brain, it's really as good as it can be. This is a blood vessel in the brain when blood is returned to the brain after a stroke. The white dots are the white blood cells or leukocytes, the inflammatory cells. And after a stroke, the inflammatory cells adhere to a significant degree as opposed to normally. When they adhere, they have the potential to cause damage in the brain vessels and to the surrounding brain tissue.
There are no drugs to protect the brain from this increased inflammation. With research funding from the state of Arizona, Dr. Ritter and UA College of Medicine endocrinologist Janet Funk have teamed up to see if a botanical turmeric will target the white blood cells.
Turmeric is a spice traditionally used a lot in Indian cooking. But it's also used traditionally in Indian medical systems, and it's used specifically for inflammatory things. In our arthritis research, we found out that turmeric prevented arthritis. So the question is, what was it doing? But one very important target that it went after was a really early part of the whole cascade that leads to inflammation. And turmeric attacks something early on.
Turmeric may help in the treatment phase of stroke, but the studies that Dr. Ritter and Dr. Funk are doing may prove that it has even more positive benefits.
Turmeric, we think, may not only have beneficial effects during the acute phase of stroke to reduce inflammation, but we think that turmeric may be effective in preventing stroke, and we would like to translate our research into that kind of clinical study in the future.
If more research and clinical trials prove that turmeric is effective in treating inflammation, it will have added implications for people with chronic inflammation, such as those with diabetes.
The folks that have diabetes, we think, tend to have worse stroke and worse outcomes and rehabilitation from stroke because of this chronic inflammation and then the worsening inflammation when the stroke occurs.
Fancy a curry? I do, and not just because of the delicious taste. Researchers at the Jean Mayer USDA Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging at Tufts University have discovered that curcumin, an organic molecule found in turmeric, appears to slow down the growth of fat tissue in mice. And turmeric is one of the spices that give curry and other South Asian foods their distinctive aromas and flavor. The study, which can be found in the May issue of the Journal of Nutrition, centers on 2 test populations of mice that were each fed high-fat diets for 3 months. One group was served food spiked with 500 milligrams of curcumin per kilo of chow. The other group of mice just got the chow, no curcumin. Both groups gained weight as the experiment progressed, but even though neither group showed any increase in appetite, the mice whose food had been supplemented with curcumin gained much less weight than the mice that didn't get the supplement. The researchers noted that the growth of microvessels, tiny veins and arteries, was much slower in the mice exposed to curcumin than in those mice who weren't. Since microvessel growth in fat tissues is directly related to their level of spread, the researchers concluded that the curcumin was keeping the mice thin by reducing the growth of microvessels. The spiced mice also had lower blood cholesterol levels and less fat in their livers than did their non-spiced peers. Even so, the scientists involved in the study note that randomized clinical trials involving humans are needed to confirm the connection between curcumin and its effect on fat tissue.
How many of you enjoy curry spice? You know that in India, they put this on everything. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, this stain you yellow. Very strong stain. Why? Because it is packed with phytochemicals. And one of the main ones in there is called curcumin. I recommend the capsules mainly because this is not available very much of the time. Not one phytochemical extracted. It's the whole turmeric. What is it used for? Well, so many things. It's one of the 7 primary herbs. Like if you look in our book, you'll see on page 23, you'll see a page that talks about the 7 primary herbs in our program. These are herbs that we like to use all the time in our meals, cooking, but in some cases we need to supplement too because they may offer something important. This herb, I think, is the reason why India has a startlingly low rate of cancer. 20 times more incidence of prostate cancer in America than India. Why? Scientists correlate it with this bad boy here, this turmeric curry, okay? Breast cancer is almost 6 times less incidence there than here. Something in the turmeric prevents cancer. How does it work? Well, scientists have figured it out, in my opinion. They figured it out with lab rats. They give the lab rats a bunch of curry, and you know what they found? They found that their glutathione levels peaked when they gave them the curry. They actually used this to reverse cancer in lab rats, and it's worked because it boosts their glutathione up. So the number one thing for turmeric is the prevention of cancer and to fight existing cancer. But that's just the beginning. Because this is also very, very good for inflammation in the body, for arthritis, for aches and pains. So it's very good to control pain because there are substances in the ginger too, which I'm going to talk about a little later, that have substances similar to the COX-2 inhibitors in Aleve and Advil. You know that Aleve and Advil, they have these COX-2 inhibitors that reduce swelling. Well, they are also in here. And for people who have pain in their body, it's excellent. I like it. It doesn't have a strong flavor. You can cook with it, but some people should be taking this every day, the capsules. You cannot overdose on turmeric.